The city of Zootopia shimmered under the warm glow of the morning sun, its skyline alive with moving trains, zooming air taxis, and the chatter of animals rushing to work. Nick Wilde leaned lazily against a hot dog stand, pretending to read the newspaper, though his sharp eyes scanned the street. Judy Hopps strode toward him, ears perked, tail flicking with determination. "Nick," she said, her voice brisk, "we've got something big today." Nick folded the paper and smirked. "You always say that. Carrots? What is it this time? Missing donut? Stolen ice cream?" Judy rolled her eyes and handed him a small, sleek device. "This was found in Tundra Town last night. No ID, no prints, but it's tech we've never seen before." Nick turned the device over in his paws, the metal surface gleaming in the sunlight. "Looks fancy and illegal." They walked together toward the ZPD headquarters, weaving through bustling streets. A polar bear in a business suit rushed past, nearly knocking over a chipmunk carrying coffee. Inside the station, Chief Bogo was already waiting for them. His broad shoulders and deep frown made the room feel smaller. "Hopps Wilde," Bogo said, sliding a folder across the table. "This device? Not from Zootopia. We think it's from somewhere else." Nick raised an eyebrow. "Somewhere else? What?" Like Bunny Barrow, Bogo didn't smile. "Like another city. One that shouldn't exist." Judy's ears twitched. "You're saying there's a hidden city," Bogo nodded slowly. "And if our intel is right, they're planning to infiltrate Zootopia." The air between them grew tense. Nick leaned back in his chair, whistling low. "So, carrots?" Nick said softly. "We're chasing ghosts now." Judy shook her head. "No, we're chasing the truth." They were given a file full of grainy photo silhouettes in mist, strange glowing shapes in the distance. One picture showed a tall figure with glowing blue eyes. Nick frowned at it longer than he meant to. "Creepy," he muttered. Their assignment was clear: follow the trail, find the hidden city, and uncover the truth about this mysterious tech. But no one at the ZPD knew how dangerous it would get. That evening, they boarded the Skyrail to the outskirts of Tundra. Frost clung to the windows as the train hummed through icy tunnels. Judy clutched the device tightly. Nick noticed her grip and chuckled. "Nervous, carrots?" "Focused," she replied. The train screeched to a stop. They stepped out into the frozen streets, their breath forming white clouds in the air. Snow fell softly around them, muffling the sound of their post. Somewhere in the distance, machinery hummed. Following the sound, they found an abandoned warehouse. Its walls were covered in strange markings, glowing faintly in the dark. Nick touched one of the glowing lines. It pulsed under his paw. "Okay," he whispered. "That's not normal." The door creaked open on its own, revealing rows of machines they'd never seen before. The air was warm inside, smelling faintly of ozone. Judy's eyes widened as she stepped closer to a large monitor. It lit up suddenly, displaying a map not of Zootopia, but of something much larger. Nick whistled again. "Carrots, that's no city, that's a whole world." Suddenly, a loud clang echoed through the warehouse. They turned to see a tall shadow step into the light. The figure wore a mask that covered their entire face, glowing blue eyes piercing through. "You shouldn't be here," the voice said, cold and metallic. Nick stepped in front of Judy. "Yeah, we get that a lot." Before they could react, the figure tapped their wrist, and the floor beneath them began to shift. Panels slid away, revealing a glowing tunnel leading deep underground. Judy's heart pounded. Nick looked at her with a half smile. "You thinking what I'm thinking? Carrots." "Always," she said. And together, they jumped into the tunnel. Nick leaned against the lamppost, his green shirt swaying slightly in the breeze. He glanced at Judy, who stood beside him with her ears perked up. Nick smirked. "You know, Judy, this city never sleeps, but neither do our problems." Judy tapped her foot. "Nick, you're always so dramatic. We just need to follow the lead." Nick tilted his head. "The lead is cold. Judy, too cold." Judy pulled out her small notebook. "Then we warm it up, Nick. We start by questioning the shopkeeper." Nick sighed. "Fine. But you're doing the talking, Judy." The two walked down the dimly lit street. Nick kept his hands in his pockets, while Judy stayed alert. A shadow moved in the alley. Nick froze. "Judy, did you see that?" Judy nodded. "Yes, Nick, and I think it's following us." Nick leaned closer. "Stay behind me, Judy." They approached the corner slowly. Nick peeked around. Judy waited, her whiskers twitching. A stray cat bolted past them. Nick chuckled. "False alarm. Judy, the rabbit." Judy frowned. "Still, Nick, we need to stay careful." Nick and Judy reached the shop. The old sign creaked above their heads. Nick pushed open the door. After you, Judy. Judy stepped inside cautiously. Nick followed, scanning the room. The shopkeeper looked up. Nick gave a sly smile. Judy T held up her badge. We're here about last night, Judy said. Nick leaned on the counter. The shopkeeper hesitated. Nick noticed the sweat on his brow. Judy noticed the trembling hands. Nick whispered, "He's hiding something." Judy nodded. "I see it too, Nick." They pressed for answers. Nick asked about the break-in. Judy asked about the missing crate. The shopkeeper denied everything. Nick didn't believe him. Judy didn't either. Nick glanced at the back door. Judy caught his eye. Without a word, Nick walked toward it. Judy followed inside. The air smelled of damp wood. Nick stepped over a loose board. Judy spotted muddy footprints. Nick knelt down. "These are fresh." Judy wrote it down. Then someone was just here. Nick, and Judy moved deeper inside. Nick and Judy stood in the middle of the dimly lit street, the soft glow of the street lamp casting long shadows behind them. A gentle night breeze rustled the leaves overhead, making a whispering sound that almost felt like the city itself was holding its breath. Judy's ears twitched, catching every faint rustle in the distance. She glanced at Nick, her face serious but relaxed. "Do you hear that?" she asked softly. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the quietness made it carry in the still night air. Nick tilted his head, letting his keen fox ears pick up the faint, irregular sound. "Yeah?" he said after a moment, his eyes narrowing. "It's something metallic, maybe a can rolling. Or maybe..." He trailed off, his voice fading as he glanced toward the shadowy alley to their left. Judy took a cautious step forward. Her footfalls were almost silent on the pavement, but in the stillness, they felt loud. Nick followed, his hands casually in his pockets, but his eyes scanning every dark corner with calculated sharpness. They stopped at the edge of the alley. It was narrow, with the smell of damp bricks and the faint scent of garbage lingering in the air. Somewhere deeper inside, something shifted, a soft clink of metal, followed by silence. Judy's paw moved to her utility belt, fingers brushing over her flashlight. Nick raised an eyebrow and smirked faintly. "Going in blind? Bold move. Carrots." Judy shot him a look, but there was a small smile tugging at her lips. "Better than standing here waiting for trouble to come to us." With a quiet click, the flashlight's beam cut through the shadows. Dust particles floated lazily in the cone of light, disturbed only by the gentle wind funneling through the alley. They moved in slowly, step by step. The walls felt close, the darkness pressing in just outside the reach of the light. Judy kept her focus ahead, while Nick's eyes darted between shadows, looking for movement. A faint glimmer appeared at the far end, something shiny, catching the light for just a split second. Judy paused, holding up her paw to stop Nick. "You saw that too, right?" Nick nodded. "Yep, and I'm guessing it's not just a loose piece of trash." They edged closer. The sound of their own breathing filled their ears, each inhale and exhale sounding louder with every step. The glimmer came again, this time a little clearer, almost like the reflection off a pair of eyes. Then movement. Something darted deeper into the alley. Not fast enough to be invisible, but quick enough to send their instincts into high alert. Judy whispered, "On 3. Nick gave a small nod. 1, a tense pause. 2, the air felt heavier. 3, they sprinted forward together, Judy's flashlight beam bouncing wildly off the walls as their footsteps pounded the concrete. The shadow ahead tried to escape, but the alley turned into a dead end. The figure froze. It was small, half hidden under a ragged hoodie, breathing fast and shallow. Judy kept her voice steady. "ZPD, step into the light." The figure hesitated, then slowly shuffled forward, the light revealing the nervous face of a young raccoon. His eyes darted between them, and his tail flicked anxiously behind him. Nick stepped closer, his tone calm but firm. "All right, kid, want to tell us why you're sneaking around at night with half the city asleep?" The raccoon swallowed hard, clutching something in his paws. Judy noticed it and took a careful step forward. "What's that you've got there?" He glanced down, then reluctantly held it out. It was a small dented metal case covered in scratches, with a faint symbol carved into the lid. Judy and Nick exchanged a look. They didn't recognize the symbol, but it was clear this wasn't just ordinary trash. The raccoon's voice trembled. I found it. I swear. I wasn't stealing it, I didn't know where else to go." Nick tilted his head. "And why exactly does something like this make you hide in a dark alley instead of taking it to the cops right away?" The raccoon's eyes darted to the shadows behind them, like he was expecting someone or something to follow. They were after me," he said in a whisper. "If they find me, they'll take it back. And I think I think they'll hurt me. Judy's ears stood straight. Who's they? Before he could answer, a faint sound came from the street behind them. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to send the raccoon flinching. Nick and Judy turned toward the alley entrance, their senses sharpening instantly. A silhouette appeared tall still, watching, and then it stepped back into the darkness. Zootopia Episode 2, Nick and Judy. The rain's soft patter against the pavement seemed louder now, as if the city itself was holding its breath. The faint sound from the street behind them still lingered in the air, each echo weaving into the tension between the buildings. The raccoon's eyes darted nervously toward the alley, her paws tightening on the edges of her coat. She looked as though she wanted to run, but some invisible force rooted her to the spot. Nick's gaze stayed locked on the dark mouth of the alley, his sharp green eyes narrowing. The tall silhouette had been there, still patient, and now it was gone, swallowed by shadows too deep for even the streetlight to touch. Judy's heart beat in a careful rhythm, Judy's instincts pulling her forward, but the cool drizzle sliding down her fur told Judy to tread lightly. A gust of wind slithered down the alley, carrying with it the scent of rust, wet stone, and something faintly metallic, like an old coin pressed into damp earth. Judy took a small step forward, speaking just above a whisper, Judy's voice steady but edged with caution. She asked if Nick had seen the way the figure's posture had shifted when they noticed it, as if it had been expecting them. Nick's answer was a low murmur, barely audible, but it carried weight. Nick said he had, and that stillness wasn't just confidence, it was familiarity. Whoever that was had been here before. The raccoon flinched at another sound, softer this time, like a foot brushing against loose gravel somewhere deeper in the alley. Judy's breathing quickened, short, shallow bursts of fog in the cold air. Judy muttered something about them coming out when it's dark, Judy's words trembling like brittle leaves. Judy turned toward her, gently pressing for clarity, asking who they were, but the raccoon's eyes kept flicking toward the dark until her voice broke, and Judy simply stepped backward, then turned, almost fleeing into the mist. Nick watched her vanish, the dim orange glow of a far-off street lamp catching on Judy's coat before she disappeared entirely. Nick exhaled slowly, not from relief but from the tightening coil of questions in his mind. Without another word, he stepped toward the alley, the soles of Nick the Fox's shoes catching small puddles, sending ripples across reflections of neon signs above. Judy followed, each step echoing faintly against the close brick walls. The alley swallowed them quickly. The deeper they went, the heavier the air became, not just damp but thick, as though it resisted their presence. A single rusted gutter above released a slow drip, each drop striking an overturned crate with an almost metronomic rhythm. Somewhere far ahead, something metallic shifted, the sound too deliberate to be the wind. Judy's flashlight beam carved narrow tunnels of light through the mist, illuminating cracked bricks, peeling posters, and rusted fire escapes. Nick moved slightly behind Judy, Nick's eyes flicking between the shadows at ground level and the black voids above, where windows sat dark and unwelcoming. The sound came again, a faint scrape, claws against concrete, followed by silence so deep it seemed to press in on them. Judy froze, one ear twitching toward the noise. Nick tilted his head, his voice a soft thread of sound, saying it wasn't the raccoon they'd heard before. They moved forward slowly, breaths quiet, boots whispering against the damp ground. At the end of the alley, something caught the flashlight, a small glint in a shallow puddle. Judy crouched, water seeping cold into the fabric of her uniform knee. Judy's paw closed around a circular object, its metal chilled by the night air. Judy turned it over, and the light revealed the unmistakable engraving of a ZPD badge. Nick leaned in, Nick's fur bristling slightly as Nick recognized the number stamped into the back. It belonged to Officer Merton. The badge was scratched, edges dented, as if it had been dropped or torn away in a struggle. Judy stared at it for a long moment, Judy's grip tightening, before slipping it into a secure pocket. Judy was about to speak when a voice, quiet, deliberate, neither rushed nor afraid, drifted down from somewhere above. "You shouldn't be here." It was impossible to tell if it was male or female. The voice carried no panic, no anger, only a cold, distant certainty. Judy's eyes darted upward, the beam of Judy's flashlight slicing across a rusted fire escape. For just a heartbeat, Judy caught the faint outline of a figure standing several floors up, leaning against the railing. The rain blurred its shape, but two faint reflections marked where eyes should be. Nick was already stepping toward the fire escape, boots splashing. Nick didn't look at Judy as Nick spoke. Nick's voice tight but calm, saying they had to go up. Judy nodded, and together they approached the ladder. It hung lower than expected, as though someone had used it recently and hadn't bothered to pull it back up. The metal was slick beneath their paws as they climbed, the sound of their boots on the rungs sharp in the muffled air. Halfway up, Nick glanced over Nick's shoulder and froze. At the mouth of the alley, just barely visible through the mist, another shadow stood, shorter than the first, hunched unmoving. Judy followed his gaze, catching only the faint outline before it slipped away into the fog. They kept climbing. The city sounds below became muted, replaced by the soft rush of wind and the rhythmic patter of rain on tin and concrete. When they reached the top, the rooftop stretched before them, cluttered with ventilation units, old crates, and coils of wire. Puddles reflected broken fragments of neon from distant signs. A sudden noise ahead, the dull thud of a boot against metal, snapped their attention to the far side of the roof. A figure was already moving, coat flaring with each stride, slipping over the ledge to the next rooftop. Without hesitation, Judy ran, Nick close behind, their paws slapping against whetstone, sending ripples through the water pooling on the surface. The chase was short-lived. The figure moved with impossible speed, leaping narrow gaps with a precision that suggested years of practice. By the time they reached the ledge, the shadow was 2 rooftops away and disappearing into the mist. Nick slowed, chest rising and falling steadily, saying they wouldn't catch them tonight. Judy didn't reply, Judy's eyes still scanning the empty space where the figure had been. The rain thickened, soaking into their fur. As they turned to leave, something caught Judy's eye near the base of a vent. A folded piece of waterproof paper, wedged between metal and stone. She pulled it free, careful not to smear the ink. 3 lines written in hurried, uneven strokes. Not safe. More than one Merton knew. Nick read over her shoulder, muttering that more than one wasn't the kind of detail you wanted in a mystery like this. Judy folded the note and slipped it into the same pocket as the badge. Her ears caught another sound then. The faint metallic clang of something shifting nearby. Nick turned toward it, muscles tense. The sound had come from the direction of another fire escape, one leading down to a different alley. Without speaking, they moved toward it, each step slow and deliberate. The air grew colder as they approached, the wind carrying the faint scent of river water. When they reached the top of the stairs, they saw something lying in the center of the rooftop. A photograph, face down. Judy knelt and turned it over. The image showed Officer Merton standing with a group of other officers. Behind them, blurred by distance, was the same tall figure from moments ago. Nick's eyes swept the surrounding rooftops. Somewhere in the darkness, the city was watching them back. The photo felt heavier than paper should, its damp edges curling slightly in the rain. Judy kept Judy's eyes on the blurred figure in the background, trying to commit every shape, every shadow to memory. The way the figure's head tilted toward the camera, almost knowingly, made her stomach tighten. Nick's voice came low, almost lost beneath the rain, saying they weren't just stumbling into this. Someone was leading them. She asked if he thought the photograph had been left here on purpose. He didn't answer right away, but the way his gaze stayed fixed on the dark beyond the rooftop told her enough. A flicker of movement near the far corner caught Judy's attention. Just a small shift in the shadows, like cloth brushing against stone. She straightened, Judy's paw instinctively moving toward her sidearm. The movement stilled. The wind picked up, curling around the vents and pipes, carrying with it the faint clang of something metallic in the distance. It wasn't random. It had rhythm, like a soft tapping, almost a signal. Nick angled Nick's head toward the sound, eyes narrowing. He suggested they move quietly, circle around the far side of the rooftop to cut off whoever was there. They moved together, steps soft, careful not to splash through the thin film of water covering the roof. Judy kept Judy's flashlight low, letting the dim glow of the city lights do most of the work. Somewhere down below, a car passed, its tires hissing through puddles. The sound seemed too normal for the weight pressing on the air up here. Another flicker of movement, this time closer, a shape slipping behind a ventilation unit. Judy slowed, heart beating a fraction faster. She could hear it now, the steady, measured breathing of someone just out of sight. She took one more step, and the shadow moved again, faster this time, darting toward the fire escape at the far end. Nick was after them in an instant, Nick's paws splashing through water as he closed the gap. Judy followed, her boots striking the rooftop in quick, controlled bursts. The figure reached the fire escape, but instead of climbing down, they vaulted onto the railing and leaped to the next building. The sound of boots on metal echoed, sharp and brief. Judy reached the edge and looked down. The drop was too far to follow safely without losing sight. Nick muttered under his breath, frustrated, and then noticed something glinting on the railing where the figure had stood. A small piece of chain, broken at one end, its links bent as though ripped apart in haste. Judy took it, rolling it in her paw. It was cold, heavier than it looked. She asked Nick if it meant anything to him, but he just shook his head, saying it didn't yet. The rain eased to a light mist, the clouds above shifting enough for faint moonlight to spill across the rooftops. Judy scanned the horizon. The figure was gone, swallowed by the labyrinth of buildings, but the sense of being watched hadn't left. Nick finally broke the silence, saying they should head down, see if the fire escape led to any kind of trail. Judy hesitated, one last glance toward the empty edge, before following him down. The metal steps groaned under their weight, the sound carrying into the narrow alley below. The alley was darker than the others. No streetlight reached this far. The air was cooler, touched with the smell of whetstone and old garbage. Their footsteps were loud here, bouncing off the brick walls. Nick slowed near a dumpster, his eyes catching on something at its base. It was another photograph, but this one had been torn in half. Judy picked it up carefully. The visible half showed a section of the ZPD precinct lobby. She recognized the tiles, the desk, but the half with any faces was missing. The tear was jagged as though done quickly. Somewhere deeper in the alley, a sound broke the stillness. The faint creak of a door's hinges. Both of them froze. Listening, the sound came again, followed by the almost imperceptible scuff of feet against stone. Nick leaned slightly toward Judy, whispering that whoever they were chasing wasn't running anymore. They were waiting. Subscribe for next episode. Zootopia Episode 3, Nick whispered, "Okay, carrots, I'm calling it. This is officially the creepiest basement I've ever been in, and that's saying something." Judy said, eyes up. "He's here." The weasel stepped out of the shadows, grinning. "Welcome to my gallery," Nick said. "Hate to break it to you," Judy said. "Where are the missing animals?" The weasel tilted his head. He lunged suddenly. Judy blocked. Nick swung in, claws out. Boxes rained down. Nick said, I had plans tonight that didn't involve dodging flying cardboard." The weasel slashed with his blade, sparks flying off a metal pole. Judy ducked, swept his legs, but he twisted mid-fall, landing on his feet. Judy said, "Stop, you're only making this worse." The weasel laughed. "Worse? Oh no, Bunny, this is only the beginning," Nick charged, pinning him against the wall. "Talk!" The weasel wriggled free, headbutting Nick. Nick staggered back. Judy dived again, grabbing his arm. "You're not leaving until you tell us where they are." The weasel spat. "Gone, vanished. You'll never see them again," Nick snarled. "Try that line again after I knock out a few teeth." The fight spilled across the basement. They slammed into furniture, stumbled, rolled, trading blows. Every time Judy pinned him, the weasel slipped free, taunting them. Weasel said, "Pathetic. You think you're heroes. You're just pawns." Nick said, "Better a pawn than a coward hiding in a basement." The weasel grinned. "You're clever, Fox. But clever doesn't save anyone. Clever just watches the city burn." Judy said, "Not while we're still standing." She rushed him again. He dodged, hurled another smoke bomb. The room filled with thick fog. Nick coughed. "He's using these things like candy." The weasel's voice echoed. "Every symbol breaks, every guardian falls. And when they do, I'll be there." Judy shouted, "Show yourself, coward." A scuffle erupted in the haze. Nick swung wildly, missing. The weasel appeared behind him, kicking him forward. Judy grabbed Nick before he fell. Nick said, "He's fast, I'll give him that." Judy said, "Stay with me. We'll corner him." They split, circling the fog. The weasel darted for the stairs. Nick lunged, tackling his legs. They tumbled up the steps, fists flying. Nick said, "You're not running from me." The weasel bit down on Nick's arm. Nick yelped, "Ow, teeth! He actually bites." Judy rushed in, knocking the weasel off. She slammed him against the wall. "It's over. You're done." The weasel panted, eyes wild. "Over? You don't understand. This city, it belongs to someone else now," Nick said. "Oh, great. Now we're getting sequel villains." Judy pressed harder. Who's behind this?" The weasel smirked. "Ask your chief. Ask your mayor. Ask the shadows that own you," Nick said. "Could you not be mysterious for once?" The weasel suddenly kneed Judy in the chest, broke free, and bolted up the stairs. Judy gasped, chasing after him. "Nick, move!" They sprinted into the alley, chasing him across rooftops, through narrow passages, down fire escapes. All the while, they yelled at each other. Nick said, "Why are we always running through rooftops? Can't we ever arrest criminals in, I don't know, a coffee shop?" Judy said, "Focus. He's heading west." Nick said, "No, he's heading east." "Wait, carrots, I'm dizzy." The weasel vaulted a fence. Judy followed instantly, springing high. Nick scrambled after, muttering, I'm not built for this cardio. They chased him for blocks. Every time they got close, the weasel knocked trash cans, boxers, and ladders into their path. Nick shouted, "You owe me new shoes after this." Judy said, "Keep going. Don't lose him." Finally, the weasel darted into an abandoned warehouse. Judy and Nick cornered him inside, breaths ragged. Nick said, "All right, round 2. Or is this round 3? I've lost count." The weasel smirked in the shadows. "You can't stop what's already in motion." Judy raised her voice. "We can stop you." The weasel's laugh echoed. "Me, I'm nothing. Just the first crack in the glass. When it shatters, you'll see." Nick said, Yeah, dramatic foreshadowing. "Heard it. Now, give it up." They clashed again, this time harder, faster, more brutal. Kicks, punches, dodges, counters. Judy landed a clean hit, knocking him down. Nick cuffed one wrist, but the weasel twisted, ripping free, almost dragging Nick with him. Nick growled, "For such a little guy, you fight like a tank." Judy said, "We can't let him slip again, hold him." Nick pinned him. Judy locked the other wrist. For a moment, they had him. The weasel leaned close and whispered, "You think you've won. But someone's already watching you. Someone who knows every move you make." Nick said, "Oh, I hate creepy threats," whispered in my ear. The weasel grinned wide, then slammed his head back against the wall, stunning them both. In the confusion, he twisted free, snapped the cuffs, and vanished through a side door. Nick groaned, "Unbelievable. I hate this guy." Judy clutched the torn photo tighter. "It's not just him. He's working for someone bigger. And we're running out of time," Nick said. "So, same time tomorrow." Judy glared at him. Nick raised his paws. "Kidding, mostly." They stared at the empty doorway, the echo of the weasel's laughter still ringing. Nick rubbed his head, still groaning from the last hit, and muttered that headbutts should be made illegal. Judy ignored him, already racing toward the side door where the weasel had slipped through. She told him firmly to move, and together they burst into the alley, catching a glimpse of the small figure darting ahead between trash bins. Nick complained that he was already half dead from running. But Judy snapped back that the weasel was smaller and lighter, so if a bunny could keep up, a fox certainly could. The chase carried them to a dumpster, the weasel vaulting easily onto it before springing to a balcony above. Judy went after him without hesitation, her powerful legs carrying her up in one clean jump. Nick clawed desperately at the edge, muttering that one day he'd burn a treadmill for revenge, but Judy hauled him up before pulling him along again. The weasel turned, hurling a glass bottle down toward them. It smashed close to their feet. Nick shouted that it was rude, but the weasel only laughed and yelled back that they would never catch him because they were already too late. Judy demanded to know, too late for what? But the only answer she got was another smirk as the weasel dashed away. They cornered him near the roof's edge, Judy warning that he had nowhere to run. But the weasel grinned and said there was always somewhere to run before leaping off the building and landing squarely on a moving delivery truck below. Nick's eyes bulged in disbelief as he pointed out that the criminal had actually done it, and that he was not about to jump onto a moving truck. Judy didn't even hesitate. She said they didn't have a choice, then sprinted and jumped, landing hard on the roof. Nick groaned, cursed his life choices, and followed, tumbling in a heap beside her. He wheezed that one day she'd get him killed, and if that happened, he'd haunt her forever. But Judy shoved him up and pushed forward. The chase across the truck roof was chaos. The weasel hurled boxers back at them, Judy ducking low while Nick caught one square in the chest and staggered, gasping that it would bruise for weeks. The truck swerved violently, horns blaring from nearby cars. Then the weasel made another impossible jump, vaulting from the truck onto a rooftop and vanishing into the shadows. Judy said quickly that he was heading for the old rail yard, and Nick groaned that abandoned trains were never a good sign but followed anyway. They rolled off the truck as it slowed and sprinted after their quarry, Judy leading with sharp determination, Nick dragging behind but refusing to stop. The further they ran, the darker and emptier the streets became. The old rail yard loomed ahead, rusted cars lined up in rows, the silence broken only by the crunch of gravel beneath their feet. The weasel's laugh echoed across the wide yard, taunting them. Judy shouted that this wasn't a game and demanded he show himself, but his voice drifted back from the shadows, telling them to catch him and prove they were worthy of the symbols everyone thought they were. Nick muttered that villains always wanted to play tag, and Judy crouched low, telling him they'd have to split up to flush him out. Nick sighed heavily, telling her that if a rodent killed him, she'd have to explain it to his mom. But he obeyed, disappearing down one row of cars while Judy crept through another. The sounds were tense, the groan of metal in the wind, the faint shuffle of movement on gravel. Suddenly, with a burst of speed, the weasel dropped from above and tackled Judy, driving her into the dirt. She grunted, struggling, and shouted Nick's name. Nick sprinted into view, but the weasel pulled Judy up against him, pressing the blade dangerously close to her neck. Nick froze, ears low, and raised his paws, telling the weasel to let her go. The weasel snarled that she needed to listen and understand that this was all bigger than her. Judy thrashed but stopped when the blade pressed tighter. Nick's voice lowered, calm but edged with fury. He told the weasel he'd won, that he had Judy, but he was forgetting something. When the weasel sneered and asked what, Nick smirked and said Judy hated losing. In a flash, Judy stomped on his foot, drove an elbow into his stomach, and twisted herself free, flipping him hard onto the ground. Nick winced theatrically and said that was definitely going to leave a mark. Judy snapped cuffs onto one wrist and pinned him down, but the weasel only laughed through the pain, hissing that they still didn't see the truth, that they were too busy chasing him to notice who was already standing behind them. Nick blinked and said nervously that he hoped that was just a raccoon rummaging through garbage. Judy froze, ears twitching. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed between the cars, deliberate and steady, nothing like the frantic scurrying of the weasel. She tightened her grip on the prisoner and told Nick it wasn't a raccoon, it was something else. The footsteps grew louder. Out of the shadows of the rail cars, a much taller figure began to emerge. The weasel's grin widened despite being pinned. He said softly that now they would finally understand. Now they would see who was really behind the curtain. Nick's eyes darted from the weasel to the approaching figure, and he muttered that he had a very bad feeling this was no ordinary henchman. Judy squared her shoulders, never letting the weasel go. But her voice was tense when she said this wasn't over, it was just the beginning. Subscribe for next episode. This is the third episode of our original series. As the sun sets over Zootopia, Nick and Judy bring the captured weasel back to the station for some late-night questioning. Of course, the perp tries giving them the old half-truth, swearing that he was just out for a simple joyride when he got busted. But there's no reason for him to lie about being terrified of somebody much more powerful than himself. When Judy asks him who it is, he tells them the name is the Whisperer, which doesn't ring any bells for our heroes. And as far as the case of the missing mammals goes, he claims he knows nothing about it. But before they can take him down to the cells, Chief Bogo steps in and tells them they've wasted enough time on this dead end. The chief says they're chasing shadows and orders them to go home for the night. But Judy insists she has to follow up on this lead, even though it means working overtime. And Nick reluctantly agrees to help her out, much to the chief's chagrin. Once they get alone, Nick admits that he doesn't think this will pan out either, but Judy insists that she figures something out. She thinks the weasel would have had to be in contact with other criminals to pull off his daring heist, so she plans to start there. Nick still doesn't like how thin this lead is, but he's not going to let Judy do this alone. Later that night, as the rain pours down on Zootopia, the ZPD records room gets broken into. The criminal Isley bypasses the security cameras and proceeds to steal every file on missing mammals while the rest of the station sleeps. We see that the same weasel from earlier, wearing a mask and gloves, is able to sneak around unnoticed by the security cameras. It only registers a blur, implying that he's moving much faster than normal, too fast for anyone to see. Meanwhile, Nick and Judy are sleeping soundly in their apartment until a loud crash wakes them up. They rush to the window and see three shadowy figures running away from their apartment building. Judy assumes these must be the guys that stole the files from the office, but they got away before Nick and Judy could catch them. Nick suggests they should probably head into work early to find out what's going on, but Judy says they're too far behind the curve already. She decides she needs to visit some underground sources to get more information on this case. Now, normally Nick is all for a little scheme to gather intel, but he's really starting to worry about this case. So he convinces Judy to let him come along. And as they make their way through the sewers, it quickly becomes clear that the danger is very real because the attackers from earlier are waiting for them around the corner. Luckily, Nick and Judy are able to escape, but not before they realize they're being hunted. Judy manages to outrun the thugs, but she turns around to find that one of them has vanished. Judy stops in her tracks. She suddenly realizes that their attackers disappeared without leaving a trace. They were never there. They're always one step behind. This is where we end our zoom out. And if you want to see how Nick and Judy manage to turn the tables, you'll have to check out the next episode. Nick and Judy make their way through the crowded streets of downtown Zootopia, looking for someone who can help them with information. As they walk, Judy explains to Nick why she thinks this case is important. She says that if they don't do something to stop whatever's happening here, Zootopia could fall apart. People will lose faith in the police and everything they stand for. And it's hard to disagree with her. After talking to several shady characters with no luck, Judy comes across a familiar face. It's the weasel from the beginning of the episode. And to Judy's surprise, he seems very nervous. She confronts him and demands answers, but before she can get any, he disappears into the crowd. Judy is outraged, but Nick stops her from chasing after him. He thinks they need to calm down and take a break, but Judy says they don't have time to waste. She wants to get to the bottom of this once and for all. She finds the weasel again in a dark, secluded alley. Judy finally gets her chance to question him, but he's more afraid than ever. Judy slams her paw against the concrete, sending a small pebble skipping across the ground. Judy, all right, now talk. Why are you running? Who are you working for? The weasel cowers before them, trembling violently. He stammers, trying to speak, but his words come out jumbled and fast. You don't get it. You don't get it. They'll kill me if I talk. They'll kill me if I talk. Please, please don't hurt me. Please, please don't hurt me. Nick places a calming paw on Judy's shoulder, turning back to the weasel. We can protect you. We won't let them hurt you if you tell us what we want to know. But the weasel just shakes his head frantically, eyes wide with terror. No, 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 no. You don't understand. It's too late. They always know. They always know. Before Judy can press him further, he bolts, darting between the buildings, weaving through traffic and leaping over fences, disappearing around the corner. Judy, after him. She charges off, but Nick grabs her arm, pulling her back. Wait, this could be a trap. Judy shakes off his grasp, spinning to face him. We can't let him vanish again. Not until we get answers. Nick, and we can't get ourselves killed either. There's no way to tell if this guy's playing us or not. Judy looks back at the dark alley, then back at Nick. Fine, but if we're gonna play this game, we gotta do it right. I want every available officer on this, plus some backup, and send out a citywide alert. Tell everyone to keep their eyes peeled for a small weasel matching this description. Got it. Nick nods slowly. Yeah, sure thing. Whatever you say, carrots. Judy takes off, bounding over rooftops, leaping across the street and swinging from lampposts, moving like a furry flash through the city. She sticks close to the walls, using the buildings for cover, knowing they're being watched. She spots Nick following a few paces behind, keeping just as low a profile as she does. Moments later, they spot the weasel again, scampering through the twisting alleys and hidden passages of Zootopia's underbelly. Judy and Nick exchange a glance, then dive into the maze. They follow the weasel deeper and deeper into the heart of darkness, careful not to make a wrong turn or get cornered. After what feels like hours, the weasel disappears. Judy and Nick skid to a halt, peering around. Where did he go? Nick? I don't know. Maybe we lost him. Just then, Judy notices something strange. A manhole cover. Several, actually. The metal ring slightly out of place, as if recently disturbed. Judy, over there. Do you see it? They creep closer, Nick lifting the heavy cover to reveal a dark opening. Together, they slide down the ladder into the musty, dimly lit tunnel. The air is thick with the smell of mildew and decay, and the only light comes from Judy and Nick's badges. As they move deeper into the tunnel, they notice strange markings covering the walls, as well as scraps of torn photographs pinned along the pipes. Nick, this looks less like a hiding spot and more like a shrine of fear. Suddenly, the weasel appears in front of them, backed against the wall, trembling and exhausted. He looks at them with pleading eyes. Weasel, please, please, leave me alone, Judy. Not until you tell us where he is. Where is the master? The weasel shakes his head, defeated. You can't stop it. Nobody can. Judy, try me. The weasel whispers urgently. The master, he's building something huge. Something that will change Zootopia forever. Once it begins, there will be no stopping it. Please, just leave me alone. Please, Judy, the master. Where is he? But before the weasel can answer, the tunnel lights flicker and go out, plunging them into total darkness. The sound of their own breathing echoing around them. When they come back on, the weasel is gone, vanished into the darkness as if pulled in by the shadows. Judy and Nick stare at the empty space, then at each other, realizing they've just been played. Nick, this is bigger than both of us. Carrots, Judy clenches her fists, refusing to back down. Then we'll make it our case. If the master wants us to stop, too bad. As the camera lingers on Judy's determined face, faint but ominous footsteps echo from deeper in the tunnels. Fade out. Subscribe for episode 5. We open on Judy and Nick making their way out of the tunnels. Neither of them are happy. Judy, we gotta do something. That weasel got away. Nick, Judy, we've been over this. It's gone. Let it go, Judy. No, I can't let it go. That weasel knows something. I can feel it. I just gotta push harder. Nick, you're pushing hard enough. We're getting way too deep into this. Judy, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we should head back and, report it to Chief Bogo. Yeah, so they make their way to the police station. Judy walks up to the front desk and tries to report what has happened. Judy, excuse me, I need to speak to Chief Bogle, Desk P Meerkat. You need anything, ma'am, Judy? Yes, actually, I need to file a missing persons report. As she starts telling the meerkat everything that happened, we see flashbacks of Nick hitting his head and the weasel escaping. The meerkat doesn't believe her at all and starts laughing at her. Meerkat, missing person, you lost something. Are you sure? Okay, well if you don't mind, I'm in the middle of something here, Judy. But the weasel, he could be in danger. He could be hiding from someone. The meerkat turns to look at her. His tone changes. Meerkat, is that so? Who sent you, Judy? What? Nobody. I just saw him down there. Meerkats, you really should leave before you cause any trouble. Judy, but what if he needs our help? Meerkat, he's not here. Now leave. She notices the chief is looking at her from behind his desk. She walks up to it and asks him to listen to her report one more time. He waves her off and tells her to come into his office. When they close the door, he tells her that her instincts may be wrong. Chief, listen, Hops, I know you mean well, but you need to learn when to trust your instincts and when to let the predator with a badge take over. Judy, but the weasel was scared. He was hiding from someone or something. Bogo, there's no predators or prey involved here. Now drop it, would you, Judy? No, I won't. I won't drop it. I won't let him get hurt. Bogo, then you're wasting your time and putting yourself in danger. What you heard down there is nothing but criminal gossip. The master is just a story to scare other criminals straight. He's nothing but a whisper in the tunnels. Nothing more. Judy, but the weasel said he had to get away because he worked for the master. Bogo, and how many times has a criminal tried to pin some made-up story on the police? Lots to cover their own crimes. Judy, but I think he was being honest. Bogo, you think, or you want to believe it because it's a good story. Look, I don't want to repeat myself. Drop it. He starts walking away from her, leaving her standing there in disbelief. She watches him walk away and then mutters under her breath. Judy, maybe he's right. Maybe it is just a story. Nick quietly approaches her. Nick, hey Carrots, what did the big guy say? Judy, oh, he said we should drop it. He said the master isn't real. He's just a story to scare criminals. Nick, that's unfortunate. So where to now? Judy, I don't know. This stinks. Nick, tell you what, why don't we go see an old friend? Maybe he can help us out. Judy, oh yeah, Finnick. But he hates me after I arrested him. Nick, yeah, but he owes me a favor. Big time. Come on. They approach the cage where Finnick lives and Nick starts knocking on the bars. Nick, yo, Nicky boy, you home? Open up. It's me, please. Finnick opens the cage door and is shocked to see Judy standing there. Finnick J, Judy, what are you doing here? Nick, yeah, Finn, we need your help. Judy, I'm sorry about before. I didn't realize you were innocent, Finnick. Yeah, it's fine. So what can I do for you? Nick, we were hoping you could tell us about this master character. Finnick, oh, the master. Yeah, I know a few things about him. Judy, really? What do you know? Finnick, just that he ain't new. For years, there's always been whispers of him down in the tunnels. People talking about him moving in big shipments and disappearing people who work for him, Nick. Disappearing people. How do you mean disappearing, Finnick? Well, that's what they say anyway. See, there are some shady characters down in the tunnels who move small shipments of, shady stuff. Sometimes they get too big for their britches and try to move something big, which gets the attention of people like the master. Next thing you know, they disappear and nobody ever sees them again. Judy, so the weasel works for him, Finnick. Probably did. Last I heard, he was still down there. But please, whatever you do, stay away from him. He's not someone you want to mess with. Judy, thanks, Finnick. We'll keep that in mind. As Judy and Nick walk away, Finnick looks down at his paws and shakes his head. Finnick, here we go again. Judy, so this master guy is not someone we want to mess with. Nick, yeah, but we kinda already have Judy. I know. So where do we start to find him? Nick, let's see. The weasel did say he had to get away from the master, so maybe we go check the place he was staying. Judy, yeah, great idea, Nick. Let's go. They arrive at the weasel's apartment. It looks pretty run down. Judy knocks on the door and it swings open. On the inside, it's empty. They start searching around and Judy finds a torn piece of a blueprint on the floor. Judy, aha, looks like we found something. Nick, what is it? Judy, I don't know. but maybe it will lead us to where the master is. Nick? Yeah, let's go find out. They take the piece of paper to a duplicating machine and make several copies. Nick shreds one of them and makes Judy smell it. Nick, can you smell anything? Carrots? Judy? Yeah, burnt caramel and ozone. I wonder where that's coming from. Nick? Me too. They take the rest of the pieces of paper to another machine and put them together. They form a map. Judy, ooh, I think this leads to where the master is. It looks like an old district on the edge of town. Nick, let's go check it out. It's nighttime now, and they're approaching an old abandoned factory. Nick, here it is. But how do we get inside? Judy, I don't know. Do you have a key, Nick? Nick? Nope. Sorry, Carrots. Judy? Well, this door should open easily enough. As she tries to open it, it creaks loudly. Nick, forget it. Someone's probably guarding that door. Judy, don't worry. I have a plan, Nick. Oh boy, what is it, Judy? She'll be quiet. She takes a piece of paper from her pocket and uses it to write on the door. She writes delivery. She puts the piece of paper on the doorknob and pushes the door open slowly. Nick, you sure about this? Carrots? Judy, trust me. They sneak inside and hide behind a crate. They start hearing voices. Voice 1. Did you get the shipment? Voice 2. Yeah, it's right here. Look. Shadowy figures start approaching the crates. They look like the weasel's henchmen. Voice 3. All right, you guys got everything. Voice 4. Yep, ready whenever you are, boss. Voice 3. Good, it's time to begin Phase 2. Judy, Phase 2. What does that mean? Nick, I don't know, but whatever it is, it doesn't sound good. Judy, wait here. I'm gonna investigate. She starts creeping over to where the men are. As she gets closer, she hears more of their conversation. Man 3. I know the public thinks the predators are behind this, but it's gonna be so much bigger than that. Once I'm done with Phase 2, everyone will be behind me. Judy, everyone. What does that mean? Nick, maybe we should leave Carrots. She ignores him and continues listening. Man 3. Soon as the transfer is complete, it's full steam ahead. Make sure everything is in order. We have to be ready for when Belle arrives. Judy, Belle, is he talking about Bellwether? Man 3. Yeah, Bellwether's gonna love this. Judy, Nick, I think we need to get out of here. Man 3. Yeah, you should probably leave, buddy. You heard enough. Nick, just a little longer. As they continue listening, the men start to walk away. Judy and Nick creep out from their hiding spot and run to the exit. They hear heavy footsteps coming their way. Judy, hurry it up, Nick. They're coming back. They race across the room and jump over some boxes. They hear the men getting closer. Judy, where's the exit? Nick, over there. She runs to the door, but it's locked. The men are almost there. She starts pounding on it. Judy, come on, unlock this. Nick, Carrots, I don't think that's gonna work. The men enter the room. They start looking everywhere. Man 1, who's in here? Man 2, I don't know. Let's just get back to work. Judy and Nick hide behind a shelf as the men pass by. Man 3, should we check outside? Man 4, yeah, make sure those gates are locked tight. Man 3, good idea, Judy. Nick, we have to get out of here. Nick, I know, but how? The door's locked. Judy, that's why we go out the window. Judy and Nick sneak out of the factory through an old ventilation shaft. When they finally make it outside, Nick sarcastically says to her, Well, Carrots, looks like you found your case. Judy, actually, I don't think we're done yet. Not even close. She holds up the blueprint. Nick, what about it? Judy, I think I recognize this. She walks away from him, examining the blueprint. Judy, oh no, this is about the city center. She looks up at the city center skyline, which is glowing at night. She quickly runs off, chasing a taxi that's heading towards it. Nick, hey, wait up, Carrots. He looks back at the factory and growls. Nick, this is gonna be one long night. As Judy chases the cab, we hear the faint sound of drums and horns playing ominously in the distance. Subscribe for next episodes, Zootopia, Nick and Judy, Episode 6. With the evidence they gathered from the factory in Paws, Nick and Judy are back at Hop's apartment reconstructing their blueprint. They found nothing on the top floor, but while mapping out the bottom floor, Judy gasps, pointing to a series of straight lines underneath city center. What is this? Some kind of plumbing? Nick asked. No way, Judy said, hopping up from her seat and marching over to the table where they spread out the blueprint. She began tracing the lines connecting them all to the city's main clock tower. These are service corridors, and whatever's happening tonight is happening here. Just then, a knock sounded at the door, and in walked an unfazed-looking Chief Bogo. You two been working hard, he said. stepping into the room and eyeing the open safe. I'm guessing you found something. We found enough to know we're not supposed to be snooping around down there, which is why we're gonna need you to look after my shift at the station, Nick said. Bogo's expression remained blank, though his eyes narrowed ever so slightly. The mayor's orders were clear. Stay off this case, he said. And what if we don't want to do that? Judy challenged. A vein popped out on Bogo's head. You're both suspended until further notice. Now get out of here before I change my mind. He turned to leave. Thanks for your support, Chief, Nick said, sarcasm dripping from his voice. Oh, don't get snippy with me, Bogo snapped. Just go home. As soon as the door closed behind him, Nick and Judy looked at each other with grim determination. It looks like we're moving off the books, Judy said. Yeah, but it helps to have a few friends on the inside, Nick said, dialing a number on his cell phone. Finnick, you got a minute? Later that evening, Finnick met them outside of the abandoned lot where they parked his van. How about I drive you to somewhere real fun, like the abandoned lot, he said, grinning ear to ear. Actually, we're gonna need your van as a decoy later tonight, Judy said. What? You guys aren't serious? I just got this thing detailed, Finnick exclaimed. We're serious, Nick said, pulling out a picture of the factory exterior. We need you to drive through town center around midnight with the back doors open and these crates in the back. We'll explain later. Okay. But what are these? Finnick asked, motioning to the crates. Doesn't matter, Nick said. Just take them and do your best Benny Hill impression. I'm actually more of a Mad Magazine fan myself, Finnick said with a shrug. Then, wait, what time does this whole plan start again? 11 p.m., Judy said. So be there or be square. As Finnick drove off, Nick and Judy entered one of the maintenance tunnels under City Center. The walls were slick with moisture and the air hung heavy with the smell of mildew. But one thing was immediately noticeable. A row of synchronized antique clocks along the wall, each ticking with uncanny precision. This place gives me the willies, Judy said, pressing on, but it also gives me an idea. If this place is below City Center, then whatever's going on tonight is probably happening above us. They followed the tunnel until they reached a junction with another set of corridors. One path led to a staircase while the other curved upwards towards a ladder. At the end of the right tunnel sat a locked equipment cabinet, and when Judy pressed her ear against it, she heard voices on the other side. Did you check all the access points? A gruff voice asked. All clear, came a younger voice. Nothing else is coming in. Those two sure took their time. Good, the older voice said. Whatever happens tonight, those two won't be getting in our way again. Judy and Nick shared a look. Whoever those two referred to, they had company. Pushing open the metal door, they crept through the corridor until they reached a junction with 3 paths. Judy pressed her nose against the far wall. This smells like stale coffee and desperation, she whispered. Exactly what I was thinking, Nick said, pulling out a magic marker. He drew an arrow pointing right. Right? Judy whispered back. Let's hope it leads to an outlet. They ran as fast as they could, weaving between pipes and electrical wires. The tunnel opened into an escalator well, but the stairs were broken. The escalator had long ago been dismantled and its parts strewn about the floor. They scrambled up the risers and continued on. Moments later, Judy spotted a glimmer of light up ahead. There's an emergency exit up here, she said, sprinting towards it. Then suddenly, freeze, a deep voice boomed. They spun around to see a burly bulldog in uniform blocking their path. Who are you? What are you doing here? Just 2 city employees on our way to a hot date, Nick lied, throwing Judy a quick glance. You're busted, the bulldog said. Dispatch sent a unit to escort you out. I'm guessing you're not who they were expecting. He charged, but Judy sidestepped and sprinted past him. She grabbed onto the back of his uniform, swinging herself over his shoulder. With a mighty heave, she yanked his card key and stuffed it into her pocket before jumping off his back. He lunged for her, but she danced away. It's not personal, she said, holding up her hands in mock surrender. But this would be a lot easier if you were standing between me and the nearest fire exit. Yeah, well, it's too bad for you, he growled, lunging again. That's not how it works around here. He charged, but Judy was ready for him this time. She sidestepped, sending the bulldog crashing into a stack of tires. Man, those tires really sucked, Nick quipped as he sprinted for the exit. Judy wasn't far behind. Once outside, they vanished into the maze of alleyways surrounding City Hall. Back inside, the bulldog shook off the incident and radioed dispatch. Send back up to the maintenance tunnels, he said. 2 intruders, female fox and male con artist. Repeat, Female fox and male con artist. I repeat, he paused, noticing something strange on the floor. He picked up the dropped key card and stared at its insignia, his eyes widening in disbelief. Dispatch, I have eyes on the master, he said. Bring every available unit to the maintenance tunnels. This just got serious. In the safety of an underground parking garage, Nick and Judy reviewed the files they nabbed from the office. What's this? Judy asked, flipping through a stack of papers. Citywide blackout scheduled for tonight at 11:30 p.m. Seems legit, Nick said, taking a closer look at another document. Okay, what's this? He pulled out a large map of city center dotted with icons. Looks like a map, Judy said, leaning over his shoulder. Well, yeah, duh, Nick said. The question is, what are all these little red dots? Funnels, Judy gasped, spotting a cluster near the entrance to the Night Howlers concert. These are crowd control funnels, but why are they putting funnels at the exits? To herd people, Nick said, snapping his fingers. It's a funnel with a bottleneck. It's perfect for crowd control. Who are they trying to control? Judy asked. Me and you, apparently, Nick said, unfolding a third piece of paper. Whoa, what's this? A manifest, Judy said. It lists everyone attending the mayor's Unity celebration. There are 200 names here. Is that all of them? Nope, Nick said, scanning the page. It looks like many of the city's top brass will be in attendance, including Chief Bogo, Mayor Lionheart, and Assistant Mayor Bellwether. Wait, why does Bellwether have a badge? That's not good, Judy said, squinting at the list. She doesn't. Yeah, but take a look at Mayor Lionheart. See how his name's crossed out next to his badge number, Nick said. Yep, that's a big no-no, Judy confirmed. But what does it mean? Does it mean he's not invited anymore? Nope, Nick said, pointing his nose at the second line of the manifest. He's not going as a mayor. He's going as a sheep. Sheep, Judy repeated, confused. Sheep, Nick said, a slow grin spreading across his face. Get it? 'Cause he's a sheep in wolf's clothing, like a wolf. I get it, Judy said with a slight smile. He's being targeted. Yeah, so much for exposing the conspiracy peacefully, Nick said, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. What do? We have to expose him, Judy said firmly, even if it means going in alone. I'm gonna plant trackers on whoever takes the chief's place and follow him back to the hideout. I'll find the master and bring him down. Don't be ridiculous, Nick said. Going in alone's too dangerous. I won't let you. Well, what are you suggesting? Judy asked. We split up, Nick said. You plant the trackers and mark the exit bottlenecks. I'll take care of the rest. And once you're done, contact me on the silent channel. I arranged it with Dixon. He's going to broadcast a fake police alert on all available frequencies to distract dispatch. That way, we'll have enough time to get out. We just have to hope nobody follows us out. It's crazy, Judy said, biting her lip, but it's probably our only option. Yeah, Nick agreed, walking over to her. I trust you to handle the tracking part. Just make sure you're back at the van by midnight. Okay, I promise, Judy said. But what are you going to do? Same as always, Nick said with a wink. Cause trouble. They hugged and split up, each racing toward City Hall to put their parts of the plan into motion. As the first notes of the Night Howlers' performance echoed through the amphitheater, Judy slipped through the crowd, planting small trackers on several unsuspecting ZPD officers. She made her way to the front of the stage, marking the 3 closest emergency exits with neon spray paint. Meanwhile, Nick was setting his diversions. He replaced the sign directing traffic to the east wing with one pointing to the west. Then he doubled back on himself, scrunching up several pieces of cardboard into makeshift barricades. He hid the flattened boxers in the crosswalk, ensuring they'd block the road come morning. Back at the apartment, Dixon was manning the phones, pretending to be a rookie cop needing guidance on an active embezzlement case. His rambling questions were perfectly timed to interrupt any transmissions about the unfolding events. All right, Nick, Judy whispered into her cell phone. Trackers are planted, exits are marked. What's your status? All set, Nick replied. In 5 minutes, I'm gonna cause a commotion near the south entrance. Should buy us some time. You gotta move once you hear the diversion, got it? Roger that, Judy said, hanging up and blending into the shadows cast by the towering buildings. Suddenly, a loud crash and a chorus of car horns blared from the direction of the stadium. Taking a deep breath, Judy sprinted toward the cover of darkness. As she raced through the tunnels, the sound of sirens filled the air. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Judy reached the exit and sprinted into the night, disappearing into the dark. At the same time, Nick burst out of the south entrance, tripping over a stray piece of wire and landing face first on the pavement. He rolled over, spitting out a mouthful of dirt. "It's working," he said, watching as a pair of headlights swung wide, narrowly missing him. "Everyone's coming." Judy slipped inside just as the lights died and the emergency doors locked behind her. She pounded on the metal barrier, fear constricting her throat. The crowd surged forward, pressing her against the door. Then suddenly, the jumbotrons flickered to life, revealing a masked figure standing in front of a familiar backdrop. "Citizens of Zootopia," a distorted voice boomed. "Tonight's festivities have been canceled. I'm afraid we must speak first. Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde. Phase 2 begins now." Hey there! Welcome back to another episode of Disney Movie Magic, where we explore the world of animation. Today we're diving into the final moments of Zootopia in what would be the 7th episode, which I have titled Zootopia, The Final Chase. Let's dive right in. Our story begins immediately following the previous scene where the mysterious master has just broadcast a chilling warning across Zootopia, plunging the city into chaos and confusion. Cars honk, sirens blare, and panicked citizens flee for safety. Determined to uncover the truth and save the city, Nick and Judy rush through the now-deserted city center plaza. They dodge overturned carts and weaving through crowds, their eyes scanning for clues. Suddenly, Judy spots something peculiar in the plaza's underground power grid, a device that seems out of place. The master's voice echoes over the loudspeaker. "You can't save your city now. All you can do is watch as my beautiful plan unfolds." The device is rigged to blow, threatening to unleash a chain reaction that could destroy Zootopia. With time running out, Judy refuses to wait for backup. She insists on disarming the bomb while Nick takes off in pursuit of the fleeing figure who must be the master. Parallel action builds, heightening the tension as both Nick and Judy race against the clock. Judy frantically searches for a way to stop the countdown, her paws flying across the device in a desperate attempt to cut the wires. Meanwhile, Nick weaves through the winding streets, determined to catch up to the master before it's too late. He jumps over fences, slides under cars, and sprints up fire escapes, all while keeping an eye out for the next clue. As the minutes tick by, Nick finally corners the figure in an abandoned building. A tense standoff ensues with the master taunting Nick, reveling in its imminent victory. Just when it seems like all hope is lost, the figure removes their mask, revealing someone from within the city's trusted circle. Could be a high-ranking officer, perhaps even the mayor, or a sly twist with Bellwether somehow returning. It's someone who knows the city's inner workings, having orchestrated this elaborate plot from the shadows. But how did they manage to evade the ZPD for so long? Back at the device, Judy struggles to keep the countdown from reaching 0. With seconds left to defuse the situation, she cuts the last wire and the device powers down, saving Zootopia from destruction. Relief washes over her as the ticking stops, but she knows the battle is not over yet. The master is still out there, and the city remains in chaos. Nick, on the other hand, finds himself in a precarious position. The master refuses to surrender, lunging for a weapon and threatening to harm themselves if Nick doesn't back off. But Nick holds his ground, his determination unwavering. The two engage in a physical struggle, each trying to gain the upper hand. However, the master proves to be a formidable opponent, their knowledge of the city's layout giving them an advantage. They dart through the streets, leading Nick on a wild goose chase through winding alleys and over rooftops. Just when it seems like the master might get away, Judy, despite her earlier injuries, jumps into action, grabbing onto the back of their motorcycle. She swings herself over and tackles the master, knocking them off balance and giving Nick the chance he needs to cuff them. As the three regroup at the abandoned building, Judy, though exhausted, stands firm, accusing the master of causing all the city's problems. The master, defeated but defiant, claims that they were only trying to help Zootopia evolve, prompting Judy to question their methods and motives. This confrontation serves as a catalyst for self-reflection as Judy realizes that her own determination to succeed led her to overlook important details in the case. She apologizes for her actions, acknowledging the need for balance between ambition and integrity. Meanwhile, outside the building, the citizens of Zootopia, initially skeptical of the ZPD, begin to regain their composure. As word spreads that the city is safe, they slowly return to their daily activities, rebuilding the city center. News of the arrest reaches Chief Bogo, who commends Nick and Judy for their bravery and quick thinking. The ZPD celebrates their victory, recognizing the importance of trust and unity in maintaining peace in such a diverse city. Later that night, after a hard-earned victory and the city slowly returning to normal, Nick and Judy find themselves alone in the now-repaired plaza. The bustling atmosphere of the city center is replaced by a tranquil quiet. The towering buildings around them stand as silent witnesses to the events that have just unfolded. As the moonlight casts long shadows across the pavement, Judy looks around at the peaceful scene, a sense of gratitude washing over her. Despite the recent chaos, Zootopia is coming together again. The citizens, once divided by fear and prejudice, are beginning to heal and rebuild. The spirit of community and cooperation shines through as neighbors help each other clear the debris and start the long process of recovery. In the midst of this healing, Judy notices Nick staring into the distance, his usual playful demeanor replaced by a thoughtful expression. His gaze seems distant, as if he's replaying the events of the day in his mind. Judy, ever perceptive, understands that Nick is not only processing the events, but also contemplating his place in this world. She knows that for Nick, being a con artist was not just a job, it was a way of life. But since becoming a police officer, he's discovered a new purpose and a sense of belonging. Now, as Zootopia slowly recovers, Nick finds himself at a crossroads, torn between his old instincts to hustle and his newfound commitment to honesty and justice. Judy, wanting to support Nick during this reflective moment, approaches him and gently nudges his shoulder. Her touch is light, yet meaningful, breaking the silence. "What are you thinking?" she asks softly, her voice filled with genuine concern. In that quiet moment, Nick turns to Judy, his eyes searching hers. He opens his mouth as if to speak, but no words come out. The weight of his thoughts pressing heavily on his heart, he simply shakes his head slightly, unable to articulate the complex emotions that swirl within him. For Nick, this moment of quiet contemplation is a turning point. It's a time for introspection and growth. As he continues to process his journey, Zootopia, with its vibrant spirit and unwavering hope, becomes more than just a city for him. It becomes a symbol of the personal transformation he's undergoing. The friends stand in silence for a moment, allowing their thoughts to settle. The quiet hum of the city slowly fades into the background as they lose themselves in their own thoughts. Finally, Nick turns back to look at the city, a faint smile touching his lips. He realizes that his place is here with Judy, working alongside the ZPD to make Zootopia a better place for everyone. He may still have moments of uncertainty and internal conflict, but he knows that with Judy by his side, he can face any challenge that comes their way. Together, they have proven that no matter how dark things may seem, hope and unity can prevail. As the sun begins to rise, casting a warm glow over the city, Judy and Nick share a knowing glance. In that moment, they understand that their journey in Zootopia is far from over. There will be new challenges, new mysteries to solve, and new friendships to forge. But as long as they stand together, facing whatever comes next, they know they can make a difference. Zootopia, with all its diversity and complexities, needs people like them to keep it thriving, and they are ready for whatever adventures await them. With a renewed sense of purpose, Judy and Nick turn and walk side by side towards the rising sun, ready to embrace the new day and all the possibilities it holds. So there we have it. Thank you so much for joining us on this exciting adventure through Zootopia. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more animated magic. Until next time, stay creative and keep believing in the power of stories. Goodbye. Now before we part ways, let's finish with a bang. Remember that cliffhanger we talked about? Well, here's that final line I mentioned, something impactful to leave our audience thinking. "Zootopia isn't perfect," Judy says quietly, "but it's worth fighting for, every single day." Powerful stuff, right? It's a nice touch to end on a more subtle emotional close to the movie. What do you think? Leave a comment below. Like and subscribe if you like the series, and for more episodes like that,